There we go. And because it's just gone the hour, welcoming those who are joining us for this webinar. Oh, got people, then we lose people, then we get people. All right, it's 1 o'clock, Australian Eastern Standard Time. We've gone from daylight time to standard time. And welcome from Andrew Peterson, the CEO of the Business Council for Sustainable Development Australia, here with my colleagues and dear friends from the University of Queensland and also Western Sydney University. The purpose of this webinar is to give you some insights and briefing on a very important project that is in the making as we speak. And I will leave them to give you the recipe and the ingredients because they're the cooks. But we are talking about the topic of partnering for net zero cities, and in particular, the role that you can play in participating as either industry or in research collaboration through this important CRC. In opening, let me acknowledge that I am broadcasting to you from the land of the Camaragal people and acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging, and particularly welcome any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders who are joining us today. The agenda is quite a brief one because we've made this a very short, sharp webinar for the purpose of briefing you. Firstly, we're going to hear about the CRC project from Greg Morrison at the Western Sydney University. Then we're going to have a deep dive into one of the research projects from Jacqueline Murphy at the University of Queensland, and she's nodding, so I got that right. And then we're going to have a quick briefing on next steps and engagement by Sammy Chung, also of the Western Sydney University. Then we're going to ask you to sing for your supper by giving a quick poll and some Q&A if you have any follow-up questions as a result of what you've heard from the learned experts that you're going to hear from. But without further ado, I'll now hand over to Greg, who's going to open up his slide presentation, and we're going to hear what is the Net Zero Cities CRC. Over to you, Greg.
Yes, thank you very much, Andrew. So my name's Greg Morrison. I'm a professor at Western Sydney University. Next to me is Sammy Chung, who is the partnerships officer, who will say a few words at the end about if you wish to join. I've been working for some 2 years on this particular venture. So although it's coming to you today, with just a few weeks before the bid closes, there's quite a lot of work in the background. I must say right to start, for those that are not fully aware of what cooperative research centres are, I guess many of you are, but they are industry-led. So we've had a lot of industry consultation. We've had, with the partners that we already have, we've had a lot of meetings. The industry, it always starts with the problem or problems. So the bid that we've put together, which is a very large CRC, which will be over 10 years, Net Zero Cities CRC, and the tagline is driving cross-sector growth. So cross-sector is really something to have back in mind through the whole of this presentation. That's what we're looking for. We're not looking forward to solving one energy issue or one transport issue or one built environment issue. It's going to be cross-sector right through this CRC because that's the complexity of our cities. Yeah. I'll just say that the next one, somebody's doing that. So it's really about driving cross-sector growth at the city. That's been by the I can't read it. City scale, sorry. So it's the city scale that's important. And for the purpose of this bid, we talk about city environments because the Australian city environments look quite different across Australia, and there's no real definition of what a city is. So we talk about city environments, and we're looking to enable an efficient and rapid transition to a net zero economy. And the net zero economy, as we know, is growing. While other things happen in the world, the net zero economy is still growing. Next. Just this is a bit busy, this slide, but the slides will be available, so you'll be able to look through them. But just to say that, there are some challenges for industry from having discussed with industry, having industry representatives. We have a CEO of this bid who is Jeremy Harris, who is an industry person. It's really about demonstrating the competitiveness of net zero business models. These are the sort of challenges that are faced, the sort of the inertia in city environments, and the issues of really providing dynamic, competitive, productive city environments for industry. Dealing with the current cost of solutions before economies of scale. We're going to work with that a lot, moving from safeguarded areas where we demonstrate what can be done with your help to then go to a city scale and do this. This is where it's a little bit different from other CRCs that tend to do sort of smaller projects. We have the national sector plans that came this year. We're going to be working across at least 4 of them. And if you take the whole value chains, all 6, which are then the basis for the net zero objectives of the Australian government for 2030, 2050. We know there's a need for coordinated decarbonisation pathways, sharing best practices. We're working a lot on creating a platform to be able to share data, knowledge, for you to be able to create new business services out of the data that we collect. And then there's a value for industry to tackle systemic barriers, testing net zero products in real markets. So we don't start in the research projects, they come at the end. They're the capacity to be able to, and the capability to be able to enable the project. But first up is the real markets. We're looking at sort of governance regulation, managing costs before economies of scale, scaling best practices across diverse city environments. So, and then accelerating the net zero transition in Australian cities through cross-sector growth and market creation and international best practice. We're creating the possibility for export into Indonesia, Vietnam, India. But we're also working very closely with our EU Net Zero Cities partner. So we have a pretty good global outreach, which we will be looking for, new markets, new things that are coming out of it. We have a very good partner ecosystem already. I won't go through all of these, but we have government. We have 8 city environments, which we'll show in a minute. Everything from a private city environment, Springfield in Queensland, through to new Bradfield to more established city environments. We have good research partners, Western Sydney University leading, but of course University of Queensland, Monash, University of Canberra, University of Technology Sydney, and we've also brought in Curtin University, which is great because they're looking at the WA sort of resource sector and what does that mean for a city environment in WA. We have big partners, many of them coming with quite large cash contributions from the built environment, particularly some of the modular SMEs. We have other innovators and networks. We have a lot of those who are peak bodies, other types of innovators such as Twynham, which is an investor. And then we have utilities, Endeavour, Energy, NBN. I don't think they've come in yet, have they? They're on their way in. Endeavour have signed up. We have technology providers, Amazon, and that includes the discussion we had last week, AWS as well. So a pretty good group of technology providers for the digital side of things, and then the circular economy, and we have international partners. So it's, but most importantly, that dark blue circle in the middle, industry-led. These are the city environments across Australia. We think we've got a pretty good sort of distribution across it. You can never be fully. We could probably have Adelaide, we could have had Northern Territory, but we're pretty good. We have some really quite interesting ones. Just this week on Friday, we're going to go and talk to Blacktown. There's a First Nations panel that's been set up for co-design. So all sorts of different projects coming out of these different city environments depending on their needs. We talk about cities as infrastructure junctions where multiple systems overlap, driving cross-sector industry growth. We think that's the key behind this CRC, is sort of working across different city environments, but also understanding the various systems involved in it, and also leaning into our international partners to sort of show what they're doing there as well. Look at the next one. We've got a staged approach to net zero transition at scale. The first projects, we actually have 6 of them. Can provide those afterwards to those who are interested, on what we call activation platforms. So these are industry invested and industry led platforms. It could be a new development. It could be we're discussing the Indigenous or the First Nations co-design, various ways of working with industry in safeguarded environments where we can actually do things, where it's not too big. So spatially defined, piloting, demonstrating new industry-led innovation. They may be within our city environments, or they may be out, but they're showing what can be done. Now, at the end, I'll just quickly at the end mention the research programs. The research programs provide a progression of researchers who will be involved in each of the activation platforms. So it's not sort of one researcher, one activation platform. All of those researchers will be available to work in the activation platforms and to do research across the whole progression of the research programs, which I'll come to in a minute. That is a little different from other CRCs, and it's because we realise that we need to sort of have the whole research spectrum coming into these complex city environments. So quite challenging, but it's what we need to do. Going to scale, we are going to start up with 2 city environment projects. One at the city scale, one which we're designing with Springfield up in Queensland for those who are there. So discussing with Richard Eden, looking at the next level of going to the net zero economy. So a fascinating project. We're also looking at one, Jackie, which will be looking at finance and looking at the net zero economy trajectory and how do we provide the finance into these activation platforms, into these city environments. So they're 2 big ones that we'll be starting up early on next year when we start up, middle of 2026. And then capacity and capability building. We're going to have what we're going to call the observatory. So this is probably a AWS or other system of collecting data, knowledge, providing IP protection where it's necessary. We believe this is going to so some commonality. If you're in this, you would have common sort of knowledge and data, but some of it may be protected because there's special business services that could be coming out of it. We believe that this is perhaps the biggest value of the CRC, actually, which is it's actually a research program, which is rapidly becoming the big thing for this CRC is the observatory. Do the next one. These are the research programs. So as I said, these are all a progression. So always, with any developments, built environment, any projects, you're always going to be looking at the finance policy, social activation. You have Jackie here today to say a few words. We know that digital solutions and circular solutions, a lot of our partners are working in this space. There's a lot of opportunity in this space. That's where the innovation is. That's where we want to be working over the next 5 to 10 years and getting this at scale, making Australia competitive and building either build that observatory is one example, managing the living labs, but also a little bit of research looking at sort of systems change and the latest ideas around city environments. But these research programs are here to support. So they come at the end of the project and they come in to support in each activation platform or city environment. We are calling for industry co-leads for each research program because we believe that's also important, that it's not just researchers here, but also industry co-leads who have maybe some in-kind time to put into this. Okay, I'd like to hand over to Jackie, a wonderful leader from UQ.
Thanks so much, Greg. Yes, thank you so much. So my name is Jacqueline Humphrey. So I'm from the University of Queensland. I'm an associate professor in finance, and I think I'm one of the worker bees. I think that's my role in this CRC. So we thought it would be perhaps helpful to show you a little bit more about what would be underneath those research programs. So I'm going to talk about the capital facilitation part that Greg already mentioned. Now, this is a component of our first research program, which covers finance, policy, and social activation. So the idea behind this research program is really that these are the enablers. So we need finance, we need policies in place, we need society's buy-in to be able to actually enable the other research projects. So I really see, yes, I really see our role as being enablers. And I'm going to focus in particularly on the capital facilitation part of research program 1. If I can have the next slide, please. Okay. So as Greg said, the real starting point for the CRCs is what is the industry issue. So if we think about that from a financing perspective, the issue is how do we finance the innovations that we need to actually meet net zero, particularly at city scale. Now, something to note as well is many of our CRC partners are small and medium-sized enterprises. And so really the idea behind this capital facilitation part of the research program is supporting our partners, supporting the innovations that we're seeing coming through the second and third research projects, and then also working alongside researchers on the regulation piece, the policy piece, and the social license piece as well. So the idea behind the capital facilitation hub, I suppose, or part of the research program is how do we actually get the money to the companies to do the things that they need to do. So that's I suppose in a nutshell what this section is looking at. And so next slide, please. So we've come up with some ideas of how we could design financing that could then be channeled to the different other research programs. As Greg said, though, we would be super interested in hearing your ideas as well. If there are other really innovative financing solutions that you've come up with, we would love to hear that and be interested in co-design with you. But basically what we have here is some ideas around accessing debt markets. So in the green there, we've got projects around designing debt instruments for supporting net zero. So that would be green bonds. That will be designing green loans. So for example, to support electric vehicles, building retrofitting, renewable infrastructure, etc. So really trying to incentivize that investment. The second part is around risk quantification. So quantifying transition and physical risks within loan portfolios. So the idea is to try, work on assessing implications of those risks within and what that means for lenders. On the right-hand side, we have some other ideas. So, for example, accessing crowdfunding. So something like an Invest in Your City crowdfunding campaign. So using that to raise money for particular projects within the city environment. Another one is the idea of peer-to-peer energy trading. So we'd like to design a way for individual energy users or individual households perhaps to actually trade, to have peer-to-peer trading, and then having that at the city scale as well. And then finally, we also want to look into, because we've got this net zero city environment, we also think that a potential way to raise funding at the city level would be to become an active provider. So we've got all these projects that are, have the potential to perhaps generate carbon credits. So this is what we currently have, I guess, on offer on the plate. But again, as we've said all along, this is really about the industry project and the industry problem and the things that you are interested in as well. So I'm very happy to discuss any other ideas around financing that you may have. And I'm going to pass over to Sammy, who will talk about next steps. Thanks.
Thanks, Jackie. I'm Sammy Chung here from Western Sydney Uni. I'll just quickly go through the next steps for CRC. With a stage 1 bid that's submission due on the 29th of April. Now, noting that might be probably a tight timeline for some of you. There's still plenty of time left. We're targeting a stage 2 submission to join the bid. The partnership is strong. And the process of joining is really on signing up 2 partner forms. And it's important to note that the forms are not contractually binding. It is just an expression of interest for you to be part of the CRC, with a view that CRC will start at the middle of next year, beginning in July 2026. So if you're interested, please reach out to Andrew and we'll pass the contact details of the team and can continue that conversation. And as Greg mentioned, we are also on the lookout for industry co-lead on the research programs. So please reach out to us if you're interested. And I'll pass it back to Andrew.
Thanks, Sammy. Let's now jump straight into the poll. And there we go. Thank you. 4 quick questions that we'd like to ask you in the audience for some feedback around interest and appetite for the this particular CRC. The first question up on your screen being, how familiar are you with CRCs and their role in industry-led research? Quick answer is always a good one. Hopefully that's, yep, that should be open. Haven't had any participation yet. Thank you. See, it only takes 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4. There you go. Flows very quickly. Excellent. Thank you for that. The next question, as you are still contemplating, is, would your business or organisation be interested in exploring a role in the CRC? And the options here are research and innovation, industry partnerships, policy and regulatory impact, or sustainability and net zero implementation. I'm conscious that question is a one or the other. It's not a multiple choice. And then the next question is, what type of role would your business or organisation be most interested in? Being industry co-funding and R&D collaboration or pilot project participation, access to the research insights and networking, or influencing at that policy and strategic level. And then the final question, what is the biggest barrier, do you think, to your organisation engaging in CRC research partnerships? Is it a lack of understanding of the CRC, which we hope we've broken down by having this particular webinar today? Is it actually concerns about the financial commitment? Things like internal capacity or the resource constraints of your organisation to participate? Or it's just not aligned with the business priorities that you have going on at the moment? I'll leave that open, conscious that people have been going through very effectively and answering all 4 questions rather than doing one at a time. So thank you for that. And I'll give that another 30 odd seconds for those of you who haven't answered. Looking forward to seeing your answers, although we have had a participation rate higher than 50%. So thank you for that. And I will begin to close off, but I'd like Jacqueline, Greg and Sammy to think about, in closing, this question, which I had, and now it's gone from my head, which is really quite annoying. I remember what it is. In participating, what do you think would be the one most significant thing that the CRC will achieve across the 10 years of its project life? So think about that.
Oh, I can answer that straight away.
Well, not yet, not yet.
Oh, not yet. All right.
Hold that thought. Ruminate, contemplate. I just wanted to give anybody else who wanted to contribute to the poll, and I might just close out, and I will close out now. So thank you to those who participated. All right, let me just quickly share the results. So first question, majority of people indicated they were somewhat familiar. So yay team, they are familiar or they're very familiar. There's no one who's not familiar at all. Wow. Question 2, would your business or organisation be interested? Primarily research and innovation people. So that's an interesting outcome on that one. What type of role would your business or organisation be most interested in? It's an even split between industry co-funding and pilot project participation, and actually access to research and insight. So that's also interesting. And the final question, what's the biggest barrier to your organisation engaging? It's actually financial commitment, but actually internal capacity and resource constraints. Okay, so thank you for participating in that, and I'll go to my question. So Greg, you've got the answer. What is it?
And I've got my answer.
Oh, okay.
We've actually, for internal processes, we've actually been looking at what does success look like after 10 years. And if I had to put the number one, if you'd asked me this 3 or 4 weeks ago, I would have said I would be the circular and the digital sort of solutions space. But actually, I think the biggest for the whole of the sort of cross-sector sort of approach that we've got is actually the observatory, the data and knowledge, putting that into a big system that can be accessed by your companies or by Australian companies to learn across cities. How does it work in one city? How does it work in another city? And developing business services out of it. I think that's probably the biggest impact we can make. It's something that's grown through our preparation. That would be my direct answer, to be honest, to that.
Okay.
Just today.
Yeah, today. So data and the analytics thereof in a net zero city world, which is very interesting observation, actually. Jacqueline, have you got any other aspirations?
Oh, look, I couldn't possibly add to that huge one, but as a finance academic, obviously, I'd love to see financing. I'd love to see a complete, anyone who's wanting to do those net zero projects actually having finance to do that.
Yeah, interesting observation that, cities, they're heavily used by the finance sector, but are they actually invested in by the finance sector is a question. I actually had a thought when I looked at your slide, Jacqueline, about adding nature-based credits as well, in addition to carbon. So that's my 2 cents.
Sign up and we can talk, Andrew.
Oh, no, I've already told you what the process is. All right. Sammy, was there any additional thoughts to that from Greg and or Jacqueline that you wanted to add?
I'll just add around the additionality part when we're partnering not just across the value chain involving industry, government, community groups, and research, but also with other nations as well that are leading some aspects around digital and circular innovation, say with the Net Zero Cities EU, as well as leaning into our Monash and Western Sydney connections in Vietnam and Indonesia. That sort of international collaboration across different city environments as we move together in a net zero journey. I think there's an element of value in that collaboration.
Yeah, that APEC conversation is going to be even more critical than what's been happening in the world in the last few weeks. So well done to the team. And I just want to make a shout out to the colleagues in that big industry bubble from MECLA. I think Green Building Council's in there, Chartered Accountants of Australia and New Zealand. Yes, very, very excited that we could be in good company with our colleagues from the NGO world in this particular project. Quick wrap up. In fact, we've got a minute and a bit. Are there any final words that you'd like to share, either Greg, Sammy, or Jacqueline, before I close out?
There seems to be a question in the Q&A.
We do have a question. Excellent point. Is there a way to test out policy ideas for circularity, and how can SMEs participate? Thank you, anonymous attendee. Who wants to tackle that question? Greg.
Yeah, look, so in fact, we've got quite a few SMEs in this particular. We've got the larger companies because, of course, they're important to sort of lead the way, and they have their ESG. We're very open to have those discussions directly and meet up and discuss. I think for us, it's more turning that question around. What is it you can bring to the party, and how can we then include that in the CRC? So it's a very valued question, but we'd like to learn more. That's what CRC is about learning what the industry problems are, and seeing how we can work together to solve those issues. So without knowing exactly what you're thinking, I can guess roughly, but we're very accommodating to SMEs. SMEs are, we want to solve a lot of those regulation, policy, sort of growth issues for SMEs, because that's the made in Australia that the government is so keen on. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. And given that there are no other questions, I will close out because we've reached the half hour. Big thank you to our speakers, to Greg, to Jacqueline, and to Sammy for their involvement today in this webinar. Thank you to those who were able to join for this short, sharp sprint in discussing this CRC. It always comes as a truism that there's no such thing as a free webinar. And what I wanted to do was also just in the chat function encourage everybody to check out the BCSD Australia Fiona Wainaration, which is coming up in May, where we're going to be welcoming the chair of the ACCC to talk about sustainability and green claims. So rather germane topic in this time of year. But for now, thank you so much for joining us. A copy of the webinar will be available on our YouTube page. And for those who have attended and for those of you who were registered but didn't attend, there will be a follow-up email with further details if you are interested in talking to any of the project leads on this opportunity. But for now, thank you so much for joining, and hope to see you somewhere in the Ethernet sometime soon. Bye for now.